Welcome to Against the Odds. Everyone has a story. What's yours? Sharing your story can inspire and ultimately transform lives.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Against the Odds, a show where we believe that sharing information can inspire and can also transform. Today I have the singular pleasure of welcoming to the studio Mr. Thierry Tchenko.
Thank you.
I would let I don't want to go through all the introduction. I'll let you introduce yourself to the audience.
Well,
Good morning and welcome.
No, good morning. Thank you so much. Thank you for letting me be here.
Okay.
It's really an honor, so thank you.
So, this show, like I said in the intro, we believe that though our lives will live different lives, our stories could be similar.
For sure.
There's some kid out there who had your experiences and didn't know how to get out of those experiences to get where you are, and hopefully listening to you something might click and they would say, hey, if he can do it, I can do it too. So that's why we're doing this show.
Yes.
And I really appreciate you coming.
No,
so
thank you.
Who is Thierry Tchenko?
Yes, so Thierry Tchenko is born and raised in Houston. I'm the son of immigrants though from Cameroon. So my parents are from Cameroon. They came to the United States in the early 90s. And they came for the chance at the American dream. My dad, when he got to the United States, he was working at a gas station called Stop and Go on Bel Air and 400 and South End.
Oh, I just close.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and my mom, she was working here on the southwest side of Houston as well. So, really trying to find a way of being able to bring us a better life. And so for me, being able to grow up and see their hard work, see their determination, that's something that really informed me. And when I was growing up, I wanted to find a way to be able to be in the position to make people like them have a better life. And so growing up in Houston, southwest side of Houston, that's where I'm from. And from there, was able to grow up. I actually started in public service when I was 13 years old. So I was the youngest volunteer for Barack Obama's campaign.
Okay, just hold it there. We're going to come to that.
Okay.
But before we get to that, how was growing up? So you grew up in Houston. How was growing up?
Yeah. It was really interesting because, when I talk to people, they ask me, well, being a Cameroonian, but then being born and raised in the United States, how was that for you? And I said, I had an authentically Cameroonian experience whenever I was at home, but then I was also able to have an authentically American experience outside of home. And so it was really nice being able to grow up in Houston. There are so many Cameroonians in the city of Houston, and I grew up in the community.
Okay.
I say that obviously my parents raised me, but it was really a village that raised me. There were so many uncles and aunties that helped me out growing up. And so being able to get involved in so many activities. I played basketball when I was younger. I played soccer. I was able to do karate. I played tennis. So there were just those activities that I was able to participate in that really informed me. But really, I grew up in the city, and it was Cameroonians that I was around, and they helped influence me. And I'm not the person that I am today without the influence of the community that raised me.
Interesting. So, folks, as you can see, this is not a scripted interview. I'm just asking and getting to know him better. My questions are going to come from your answers and what you say. So, what was the spark? Why politics? What was the spark? What was the turning point that got you to say, okay, this is what I could be doing, or this is what I could do for life?
So it starts actually when I was 5 years old. So I was watching the election returns of George Bush versus Al Gore at my uncle's house in Sharpstown. And I remember watching it and thinking, man, there's something about this that is very intriguing. And now the way I'm talking about it today wouldn't be the way I'm talking about it when I was 5.
Right.
But just the idea of wanting to get involved. And so that led to me when I was 13 years old, being the youngest volunteer on Barack Obama's campaign in 2008. So that was knocking on doors, that was making phone calls, getting people to get involved and allowing them to know about the campaign. That experience, and I was doing that in Houston, that led to me actually going to Virginia. The campaign asked me, hey, would you like to come to Virginia and help out the campaign before you start the 8th grade? And so I went up there for a couple of weeks and did the same thing, calling people, registering voters, making sure that people's voices were getting heard. And that led to a life of public service.
So for all the 13-year-olds who are listening out there, you can also become a senator. But that's intriguing because you don't have a lot of 13-year-olds thinking about politics, about thinking about, service. Was politics something in the home that that was around you, surrounded you to be able to encourage you to do that?
A little bit. So, for those watching, and many of the people that are going to be watching are going to know my parents, Thierry Tchenko and Agnes Sundy. And at home, my dad often was watching CNN and he was watching Fox, MSNBC, so he would stay up to date with the news. And even as a kid, that was something that I was always staying in touch with. I really feel like I was watching sports or I was watching the news. So it's something that was just inside of me very early. My dad played a huge role in that, being able to help develop that. But I really do think that it was something that I was born with. I was born with the desire to help people and the desire to be involved in politics.
Okay, so you're running for the senators,
United States Senate.
United States Senate. One thing I'm curious is, this is a statewide race, right?
Statewide.
But when I drive around and I see all those posters, I am specifically looking for you, and I don't see you. So how do you explain that?
There are many ways of running a campaign. So what we try to do is being effective, making sure that whenever we're reaching out to people, we're doing it directly. Why things like this are helpful, and we do a lot of this because we're able to talk directly to voters. So there's value in yard signs, and if folks would like a yard sign, please let us know. You can email us at info@chenkofortexas.com. But what we like to do is really focus on talking to people directly, because yard signs don't vote, but people do. So you want to make sure you're talking to people directly, and that's what we've been doing. We've now been to almost 80 counties across the state, which is the most out of any campaign in this primary, because going and talking to people directly and asking for their vote and support is the number one thing that you're supposed to be doing in a campaign. So that's what we focus on doing.
Again, another thing that's curious for me is when I listen to the news, NPR for say, that's what I listen to, and they talk about the Texas race. I only hear two people's names, Arad and Gutierrez. I never hear any other person, but I know the 9 of you running. How do you break through?
Well, that's what we've been doing. We've actually been building a lot of momentum. This week, we got the endorsement of the Bexar County Young Democrats, which represents San Antonio, which is the second largest city in Texas with over 1.4 million people. A couple of weeks ago, we received the endorsement of the biggest rural democratic organization. They represent 134 counties in Texas. And so when we started, I started with my wife. We were driving in our car, going from place to place. It was a vision of a new way forward that we had, because we knew that the politicians that we're electing are not actually fighting for the people they're supposed to be fighting for. And so that vision that started at the end of July of last year has now brought us today where we're in a position where we're getting endorsements, we're building momentum, we continue on getting more media coverage. And so we're excited about March 5th, which is the primary date. People can vote first on February 20th to March 1st. So that's early voting period, February 20th to March 1st. And then the actual election day is March 5th. And so we're excited about that. And our name is starting to get brought up more, but we're building a campaign. We knew going in that there were going to be some people that were going to have more resources because of their time in office. But as we've been traveling, we've been seeing how people are really excited about our campaign's vision of a new way forward.
That's interesting. Ted Cruz, he's such a mammoth person, he's somebody, Why did you want to represent? Why do you want to beat Ted Cruz?
When I've always said that if I run for office, I don't want to run for office just to run. I think that's a part of the problem with our system now, is you have a lot of people that put their names on the ballot, but there's not a real conviction behind why they're running. And so throughout my time, I said, if I'm going to run for an office, I want to make sure that there's a passion and a conviction that's guiding me. So in November of 2022, after the midterm elections, I got very frustrated because I saw a disconnect between the issues that people on the ground are dealing with and the issues that politicians are talking about. And so in December, I started a series called Talking Texas, where I would travel the state and talk to people about the issues that they actually care about. And we went all over the state. We recorded about 10 episodes. And there were really two takeaways that I had. Number one, people are not getting their needs met by politicians. Politicians continue on giving great talking points on the campaign trail, but then get in office and don't do what they said they would do. But then also, I started to feel a conviction for this Senate race. So I took some time, I prayed about it, I talked to my wife, made sure that this was the right thing for us to do. And after those conversations and after praying about it, I saw that this is something that I need to do. And now my background has been in public service. So I started, as a volunteer for Barack Obama's campaign in 2008. But that led to me being an organizer in Houston for Wendy Davis when she ran for governor. Right. In DC, I was a civil servant in the White House Office of Management and Budget. Was also a staffer on President Biden's campaign before coming back to Houston and working as a nonprofit executive providing home repairs to seniors, veterans, and low-income families. So my background had been in public service, and that majority of the time had actually been in politics. But whenever I was going and talking to these people on the ground, those experiences stayed with me, and I said, you know what, I need to get in the game, I need to get in the arena in this election for the United States Senate.
But most of the time, on campaign trails, like you're doing, you're talking about what you're going to do,
Yeah.
but it's been noticed that once you get in there, you're not just by yourself.
For sure.
You have to work within the system, and most of the time, those promises don't pan out. Mm-hmm. So how are you going to be different? What is it that's going to be different for you to implement what you fervently believe that needs to be done?
Well, I've been different my whole career. So it doesn't start in the United States Senate. Starting as an organizer, I was the #1 organizer on the campaign that I worked for in 2014 in communities, making sure to mobilize people. Whenever people told me, Thierry, you're not going to do much in those communities. But it's because of a persistence, it's because of a desire to really serve people that allowed me to get that #1 spot as the organizer on that campaign. But even in my time in local government, being able to provide food distributions during COVID, being able to make sure that people had access to all the resources that they need. The reason why we don't get the results that we should get from our politicians is because there's a lack of true desire and care for the communities that they're serving, right? So they talk about things on the trail, but then they get in office and they don't flesh that out. An example, in Harris County, a lot of people are going to be watching this in Harris County. The average income is just under $40,000 a year. But if somebody has a child and is paying for childcare, that amount alone is about $10,000. So with one expense of childcare, almost 25% of your salary is being taken away. But politicians are not introducing legislation to find a way to be able to make childcare less expensive, right? But on the campaign trail, they'll talk about, well, we need to make sure that there's affordable childcare. But then why is that whenever you're in office, you're not making sure to introduce policy? Because talk is cheap, right? I can come and tell you anything, but the way that you'll know that I actually care about an issue deeply is by the legislation that I introduce. And so that's something that I've made a promise on to this trail on the key things that Texans are facing, whether that's immigration, education, healthcare, that I will be introducing legislation to try to make people's lives better in the United States Senate. And there's an opportunity of being able to do that, being able to work with the Republicans and Democrats to get that done.
So that leads me to a question that maybe I should have asked. Why? Why are you, what are you going to do for us? Which I'm sure you have touched on that a little bit. But why should people go out and vote for Thierry?
Yesterday, I was at a restaurant with my wife, and we actually had Papacitos. And we were able to go out a little bit and enjoy a little bit with both of ourselves. And when I was out there, I was looking around, and I was thinking to myself, right now in this period in 2024, so many people are working themselves to death, and there's no breathing room to be able to even have the opportunity of taking the kids to Dave & Buster's, right? Being able to just relax. And so for me, that's who I think about when I think about legislation is how do I find a way of being able to make life a little bit more comfortable for the average family? I talked to you about the average income in Harris County being $38,000 a year, right? If your average income is $38,000 a year, rent is now becoming more and more expensive, or even a mortgage is becoming more expensive. There's no breathing room. And so I don't like to make false promises. That's something that I won't do. But what I will say is when it comes to things like healthcare, being able to make sure that more people have access to health insurance so that if you have a stomach ache or if your knee is hurting, and I think about my mom, even right now, my mom doesn't have health insurance. So if something wrong happens to her, she doesn't want to go to the doctor because she's going to end up having to deal with a $9,000 or $10,000 medical bill. So allowing people to have access to health insurance so that they can go to a hospital and be able to get taken care of without having to worry about a big expense on the back end. Being able to think about things like even just having more money in your pocket. What are tax credits that we can provide to middle class and low income families so that there's room to be able to take your child out for a fun night, right? And something that you can look forward to. Or even something like education. You know, our public schools are suffering right now because there's not enough money to be able to make sure that teachers are paid well, that classes are small enough so that every student is able to pay attention and have that type of, involvement with the teacher. And so those are some of the key things that for us, when I think about what are the needs that people are facing that we want to help solve. Immigration is also a big issue. Being able to actually have a solution on immigration to make sure that, folks that are coming into the United States, I think about my parents and, my wife is from Nicaragua. So same coming to the United States looking for opportunity. But because there are gaps in our immigration system, people get taken advantage of and you're not able to have an economy that's actually working because it works both ways. You can have those that are coming from other countries help out the United States, help our economy, but then they're also helping themselves. So as a son of immigrants, that's also another issue that's very important for me. So those are some of our key components. I would say if you ask me what are my 4 main issues.
Exactly, I was going to go to that.
Yeah, it's immigration, it's education, it's the economy, and it's healthcare. Those are the 4 things that I want to be focused on making sure that we're doing to make people's lives better. And I'll introduce legislation on all 4 things.
What's the number one thing that you would want to tackle when you get in there?
It has to be the economy. It has to be I think at the end of the day, when we travel the state and talk to people, I was in West Texas and I was talking to a lady and she said, Thierry, I work over 120 hours a week. 120 hours. And she said, not because I want to, but because I have to. And so whenever you have people, in 2024, nobody should be in the position of where you have to work 120 hours a week to get by because you're not making enough money, right? So that's something that I'm very focused on is being able to allow families to not just thrive, not just survive, but be able to thrive. Because there's a difference between having to work day in, day out just to survive and then being in a position where you can sit at home, you can be comfortable and you know that, okay, there's enough money that if something happens or if I want to take the family out to do something, that I can do that without having to be worried about living paycheck to paycheck in a way to where if something happens, then now I know that my life is now in shambles. That's not the way that people should be living, especially whenever you're working harder than ever before.
You've traveled throughout the state.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, being an African American, first generation immigrant, how do people receive you? I'm just curious.
I've been received really well. And it's why, when we talk about a new way forward on the campaign, I'm a Democrat. I believe that the majority of the time, Democrats have the right solution to the problem. But we talk to everyone. We talk to Republicans, Independents, and Democrats because everybody is going through it, right? It's not just Democrats that are having a hard time in our economy. It's also Republicans and even those that don't identify with the political party. And so when we go and share that message of a new way forward and getting away from the old way of doing politics, which is a lot of talk but not enough action, that's something that's getting traction and getting people to get involved and excited about our campaign. I remember I was in Meadow, Texas. This is right outside of Lubbock, Texas. And I was talking to some farmers. And they looked at me and they said, look, I haven't voted for a Democrat in 40 years. That's what they were saying. But they said, look, Thierry, you showed up and you're actually talking about the issues that people are dealing with. We're happy to support you. And so that's what we're getting when we travel across the state. right? Because it's not just a Republican or Democratic problem, it's a Texas problem. And so whenever you find a way of being able to make people's lives better, that's for everyone.
In the community, the African community, the Cameroonian community, I am not sure a lot of us even know that you're running. What are you going to do to, increase that awareness? We just have what, a couple of weeks for the election. So are you doing anything within the community, within the African community, to get that support? Because, granted, everything, they say at their home is where the foundation where you go. So what are you going to do to increase that awareness?
Well, it starts by doing things like this.
Okay, thank you.
It starts by doing things like this
Right.
and blasting it out, making sure that people are able to see that, I'm somebody that's connected with my community. And, being able to go to the Houston Veterans, being able to hang out in places. Those are things that are just, I've been growing up doing that. So that's something that we continue on doing, and I've been able to do it. And as we start getting closer and closer to Election Day, I'll continue on showing up and making sure that people are able to see me and know that I'm running for the United States Senate. So that's something that we're definitely going to lock in on as we get closer and closer to the race. But I've already been showing up, already been doing this so that people can know about the race. But it's also important for us to blast this to make sure that, if I'm not somewhere, people can still see me and see these type of interactions and know that, I'm here to serve them.
So what do you need for us to do to support you?
Yeah. It's really good.
What is it that we need to do besides this? What is it that the community can do to come in to support you?
Yes. So the first thing, if you're watching this, take this interview, send it to 10 people, blast it out on your social media. That's Facebook, that's WhatsApp, that's Twitter, Instagram. There are so many now, right? But
Exactly.
Blast it out. Make sure that people are able to hear the message of this campaign of a new way forward from someone that was born and raised in the community. I think that, with all the Africans and all the Cameroonians that we have in this community, it only makes sense, right, that we have somebody in Washington, D.C. that's also thinking about the people that I grew up with in Sharpstown, the issues that Cameroonians and Africans across this state are facing. And so being able to blast it out and share that with people, but also, being able to go onto our website, that's chenkofortexas.com. That's TCHENKOFORTEXAS.com. And being able to sign up, being able to get involved, being able to help us out, whether that's sending text messages or making phone calls for the campaign, being able to now go and visit door to door and give people our literature, and then being able to donate, whether that's $1, $5, $10, all the way up. You can donate up to $3,300. So between $1 to $3,300, that will help us be able to spread the word and let people know about the campaign.
Hey folks, hear from the horse's mouth. That's why we're doing this. We hope that, this would, inspire somebody out there to go and help or to want to become just like you.
Yeah, because, I'm no different than all the other first generation kids that are here in Texas, in Houston, in the United States. Right? I had two parents that, both primarily French speakers. They came to the United States and they were figuring out a way of being able to make things happen. Right? And because of their hard work, I'm in the position that I'm in today. But that's something that is achievable for any child that's watching this, right? So I hope that for the children that are watching this, and even for the parents, that when you see me, that you see yourself, that you see your child, because these are the type of possibilities that you can have in the United States of America. So I don't take it for granted being able to sit in this position and being able to even talk to you. And that's something that we need to make sure that we spread the message, right? I shouldn't be the only one doing this. We should be fighting to make sure that more children and more people have these type of opportunities, and not just in politics, right? But your son Nathan being able to be behind the camera, being able to do this. That's what is possible, right? In videography, in politics, in business, in health. There are so many things that are available right now in the United States where people can thrive and be able to grow. And so it's about pushing and doing the hard work and supporting each other. So I really appreciate you having this, and please reach out to me. My phone number is 832-786-0809. I'm really serious about making sure that we build a culture of support, right? Because if I win, I want to make sure that everybody wins, right? That's the way that it should be. It shouldn't be just, okay, well, one person is able to do something on the side and then everybody else is trying to figure it out. If there's knowledge that you have that I can benefit from, you should be sharing that. If there's knowledge that I have that you can benefit from, I should be sharing it with you.
Absolutely.
That's what we need more of in our culture and in our society. And I think that's how we start to uplift ourselves and rise.
I want to thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And when you win, please come back.
Of course. Of course.
Thank you very much.
Of course.
So folks, thank you for watching. Stay tuned for another episode of Against the Odds. Thank you.